Okay, couture crafters, let's get into this video. This is based on Coraline. I hope you guys have seen the movie. It's definitely another one of those kind of dark, eerie cartoon, claymations, they're not cartoons. But the minute I saw this set, I was like, absolutely. This is kind of how I see the Misfits. It's kind of the same way that Tim does, kind of in a darker way. This set is called the Merry Misfits. And yeah, I decided to make this card, and this card is ginormous. It's actually 11 inches tall. And here I'm starting with my Copic coloring. The coloring is not my gift. So if you are a person who is a Copic colorer, turn your eyes away because you are going to probably think that I'm doing it all wrong. But hey, I get the color down. It looks all right when I finish, and I'm okay with that. And I actually taped myself doing all the coloring, but who wants to watch me color? I don't think so. I really don't think anybody wants to watch me color. So I definitely do not show you all of me color, and I cut out quite a bit of it. The way that I color is going from lightest to darkest and then back again, blending it all down. And every now and then I'll go back again in that same order just to make sure that everything is smooth in the way that I want it to look. But for the most part, you guys don't want to see me do this. I think I'm using like R29, which is my favorite Copic color ever. Something about that R29 makes me very happy. I'm using R29, R27, probably, I don't know what the other ones are. But just throw down some reds. Just get your reds together and go for it. Now I'm using the cool tones for all the grays. And so I use the same red on the Santa, on the reindeer, on the snowman. Well, he doesn't have any red, but I just pulled out a couple of sets of colors and I use them for the entire project. It's not like I'm using a different red for the nose and a different red for the hat, that kind of thing. No, all the same. So again, I did take myself doing all this coloring, but I just don't believe that anybody really wants to see what I'm doing and where I'm dropping the colors and that kind of thing. For the for the ice and the snow, I'm using the B001 and I think the B000 and then the colorless blender to kind of do my shadows and that kind of thing. And that's what I'm doing now. I must say though, the more I color, the better I get at it. And I'm starting to really like some of the results that are coming out with this Copic coloring. So there's possibly more Copic coloring coming. Actually, I know there is. Matter of fact, the next card that I do, not true. I think it's the third card from now that I'll be doing. We'll have some more Copic coloring. We'll see. I feel like some more Copic coloring is coming down the pipeline. So if you enjoy that, let me know. If you don't, I get it. You can do the same thing. You can do, well, I'm not going to say the exact same thing, but you can certainly get these results with colored pencils or whatever medium you choose to color with. I don't think this is going to be a card that very many people want to duplicate. It's definitely a stylized, it's going to take a special person to get this card, to like it, to appreciate it. It's not for everyone, and I don't want you to think that all my cards are going to be dark like this, but right now that's kind of the space that I'm in, and that's what I thought of when I saw these, so I had to get it out. Again, going back to this card is ginormous. It's 11 by 4. So that's pretty long. When taking these to mail them out, I really don't care if I have to pay extra shipping or whatever, if I have to pay for a box or that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. If that kind of stuff bothers you, do not do this card. It is definitely oversized and will cost you more postage. That's just not something that I'm concerned about. I just want to make what I want to make and be okay with it. And you guys know that I don't do traditional size cards anyway. So I'm probably always going to have to throw a couple of forever stamps on there and be okay with that. So again, the card is 11 by 4. And I used my Cricut to cut out the frame for it. Very, very rarely do you see me do what I'm doing on screen right now, which is fussy cutting. Fussy cutting is known as the F word in my house, and absolutely not. I do not like to take the time to do it. I actually bought a Brother scan and cut just to cut stuff out for me. I have not used it, have no idea how to use it yet. But I am not a fan of cutting things out. However, to get the proper mask, since Tim didn't want to put it in there with me, I think that most companies should just include a mask with their stuff. I know that a couple of companies have started making stencils and masks that go with the set. I would pay for that because there's nothing worse than having to try to cut out an image on the line. I just hate it. So I had to do it though for this. So that's what you're looking at now. I didn't screw up the painting and we're not going backwards. There's just a mask so that I can stencil right over the top and put those trees in the background behind my little misfits. And I'm just throwing this birch trees stencil down any kind of way. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And I'm using two different colors. I think I'm using aged weathered wood and antique linen just to throw some kind of spooky trees behind them. I wish that I had taken a little more time to look at where the trees were and which ones were doing what, that kind of stuff. But this card was just a fun card that I thought would be a great start to the holiday series because it's definitely not something you're going to see during the holiday season. Not too many people do cards that have this kind of dark undertone to it. So now I'm using my Tailored Expressions brushes, which I'm still getting to know and using constantly with these oxides, which I can't stop using. I am all about blending with oxides right now because they really do make it kind of easy. It's much easier. Oxides are a different type of ink anyway. There's no other ink that I can really think of that's like them. Tim Holtz is always on the forefront and innovative when it comes to inks. So you can actually use these inks to stamp with and you will get a pretty decent impression. So I'm using, I think chipped sapphire to stamp these snowflakes. And the masks are still on there. We haven't removed the masks. So we're just, no rhyme or reason. We are just stamping away, throwing down some snowflakes. These snowflakes come in that same Merry Misfits set. And I know it looks crazy, but now we are going to pop up the little guys here. And I'm using my Cricut spatula to do it because that is really put down pretty good with that repositionable adhesive. And so now I'm just taking my finger and rubbing it off. And there we go. Now it looks crazy right now. And of course I've used this sheet of paper to do other things with, to cut the masks out and that kind of thing, but you won't be able to see any of that when I'm finished. So I went ahead and chopped it off at 4 inches. And then I used my Cricut to make this frame. I designed it, and I believe you will be able to, I'm going to leave a link to this actual frame if you want to do exactly what I did. But it's just simply putting some windows in a rectangle. It wasn't too difficult to do. Now it's time to add the buttons, which are really the star of the show. Again, if you've seen the movie Coraline, you totally get where I was going with this. And so I used my, I think I got those buttons from Michael's, actually. I did get those buttons from Michael's. Now I'm grabbing a needle and thread. And I just didn't like the way they looked without the thread. The thread was important. So I went ahead and used a yarn needle, which has a large hole, and put the yarn through the buttons. Now for this, I kind of wanted it to look scary and kind of not perfect. It came out a little more not perfect than I anticipated, but these are, I think this is by Prima, the stamp set where you can, it looks like a typewriter. And I wanted it to be very clear that this is Misfits. And I really wanted the other to be a little more clear than it came out. Oh, well, moving on. It's a card that I just had inside and I was dying to use it, so I did it. I'm using the Dilution stamps. I thought I was using these for the first time. However, when I turned it over and looked at it, there was ink at the bottom. And I was like, how? So I'm using Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink because we're going to do some heat embossing, not to be confused with dry embossing. And so I'm grabbing out the letters that I need. And this is all by chance because you cannot see exactly where you're stamping. And that bit me in the butt just a little bit, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, you know what? I'm going to redo it, or it was just like, whatever, just be okay with it. Sometimes handmade cards are not perfect. I know a lot of the time the YouTubers only show the perfect stuff, and you know what? That's not life. Life is not perfect. So I feel like we need to use our things, and these are stamps that I don't use super often on cards. I would more likely use this in an art journal because it's so you get what you get kind of thing. So I saw that there was some excess ink in an area. So what you can do to fix that is go over it with your anti-static tool and it will work. So I flipped it over and I decided to restamp it because I just didn't like the way that some of the letters were. I wish that the R had been over just a touch, but it's not. And I've decided it's okay because I'm using Diane Reevely's writing, and her writing is funky and crazy. You guys know when you use that static thing, it kind of leaves a powder behind. It doesn't kind of, it does leave a powder behind. So I'm using some microglaze, which is just a paper sealant, which will evaporate. It's kind of like Vaseline, but it evaporates off the paper eventually and it seals it. You can flick water on it and it will repel the water. It's one of the ways to seal your water-based media. But it will also knock off that dusty look. So now I'm just gluing the frame down. I'm using art glitter glue because I might need to wiggle. Anytime I feel like I might need to wiggle, I use art glitter glue. And this is actually the card front. It's just a base. And then I went ahead and glued it to an actual card base. And I did that by taking an 8 by 11 sheet of paper. Well, 8.5 by 11, cut off a 1/2 inch. And then I just took it and scored it right down the middle. I love that this card is huge. I never really thought about doing a card this big. I've always felt restricted, kind of, but you guys also know that I don't play that with the traditional A2 size either. But I've never done a card that's this long before. This is new. So then that brought up a new problem. When you look at your 1, 2, 3 punch board, you do not see the measurements for a card of this size. So what I did was I had to make my own envelope. This is me just gluing down the base to the card front, or the card front to the base. Using art glitter glue again, lining it all up, and bam, we've got a card. Very neat, very cool. So this isn't going to be an oversized envelope. And I was like, I know that a 12 by 12 sheet of paper will cover this. I make enough envelopes to know that. What I should have done right here was squared this off. This piece of paper was not square. I knew it wasn't, and I should have squared it up because I probably could have gotten a close to perfect envelope had I done that. I've done enough envelopes to kind of know what to do. I've created enough boxes to know what to do. You grab a square, put your card inside the square, and then I'm going around it with a stylus tool. And I'm marking where their folds need to be. This is not super difficult. You can probably do this for just about any size if you have the right size paper. Most envelopes start off with an actual square, so make sure to square off your envelopes. This one was not perfectly square, and you'll be able to see where that becomes a tiny problem, which really isn't a problem, in just a moment. I don't know that I would make a card any larger than 11 by maybe 4.5, maybe 5, using a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. You see right here, it's not perfectly square. So I need to pull it over to the left a little bit, and it doesn't come out exactly even, but it certainly comes out good enough to make this into an envelope. I'm using this same crinkly, funky paper that I bought from Hobby Lobby. Yeah, I think I could have gotten away with another 1/2 inch, maybe an inch, maybe 5. So then I'm just going to notch the sides. I'm cutting out where the lines intersect that I scored. You can see my square lines. See how this little triangle was a little bit smaller than the ones on the other side? That's how I knew it wasn't even. Did it cause a big problem? Absolutely not. So I'm just marking where I need to cut off the tip. This is something that I do on a lot of my long and skinny envelopes because they're long and skinny, and that's weird. And look, it's an envelope. It came right together. So you guys, do not be scared to make cards that are not traditional sizes. You can make your own envelope. Grab a square, put it in the middle, and then trace around it. Fold it down, clip out the notches, and you got an envelope. I'm using my bone folder to burnish it, and look, it fits. It's not perfect, but it's not super off. I mean, if you guys are looking at it right now, you're probably saying where, it's not perfect, but it's not super duper off. So you know me, I have to make sure to cut off enough of it so that I can seal it without it being a problem. And here I am sealing with black wax that I get from AMZ Deco. I need to use 5 beads because my seal is so large. I like large seals, guys. Those little seals are for not for me. You guys, if you made it all the way through this card, you are on day 2 of my holiday card series. Please stick with me. Leave me a comment below or come follow me over on Instagram with the same handle. See you soon. Bye bye.